Hi, hey, we have a little bit different characters here. You see the 4 characters hanging on the wall? Well, they are the characters in the story that I'm going to tell. Of course, the story's name is The Little Red Hen, which is the hen that's sitting up there in the middle. Okay, the little red hen lived at the end of the farmer's field. And she loved planting a garden and raising things. In the doorway of her little cottage slept a dog. And in the window of her cottage slept a cat. And out by the little pond napped a duck. Well, one day when the little red hen was out doing her gardening, she found some wheat that the farmer had dropped. And so she was all excited, and she gathered it up, and she ran to the house, and she hollered, "Look, look, I found some wheat. Who will help me plant the wheat?" And the dog lifted his head from sleeping and said, "Not I," said the dog. And the kitty sat up and stretched in the window and said, "Not I." And the duck out by the pond, napping, woke up and said, "Not I." "Then I'll plant it myself," said the little red hen. And she did. She went out and she planted all the wheat. And she weeded it, and she watered it, and she was very, very careful. When the little sprouts started coming up, she was so excited, and they grew and they grew. And one day, they were ready to be picked. And so she ran to the house again, and she says, "The wheat is ready to pick. Who will help me pick the wheat?" And the dog raised his head and said, "Not I." And the cat stood up and stretched and said, "Not I." And the duck looked up from his nap and said, "Not I." And so the little red hen said, "Then I will do it myself." And off she went and cut the wheat. Well, of course, when the wheat has been cut, you have to take it to the mill where they grind it into flour. And she thought, one of my friends will come with me. And so she ran to the house and she says, "I must take the wheat to the mill to be ground into flour. Who will come with me?" And the dog said, "Not I." And the cat stretched and said, "Not I." And the duck woke from its nap and said, "Not I." "Then I'll do it myself," said the little red hen. And she did. She took it all the way to the mill and had it ground into flour. Well, on the way home, she was thinking, "Oh, I have flour. I can make bread." And she was so excited. When she got home, she jumped over the dog who was laying in the door and said, "I'm home. Who will help me bake the bread?" And the dog said, "Not I." And the cat stretched in the window and said, "Not I." And the duck, out by the pond, woke from its nap and said, "Not I." "Then I'll do it myself," said the little red hen. And she did. She baked the bread. And as the bread was baking in the oven, those wonderful smells came over to the dog's nose, over to the kitty's nose, and even outside to the duck's nose. And everybody woke up and stood up and looked at the little red hen as she pulled the bread out of the oven. And she said, "Who will help me eat the bread?" And the dog said, "I will." And the cat said, "I will." And the duck said, "I will." And the little red hen says, "You will not. You wouldn't help me plant the wheat. You wouldn't help me harvest the wheat. You wouldn't help me take the wheat to the mill, and you wouldn't help me make the bread. So you will not help me eat it either." And she sat down and she ate the whole loaf herself. But do you know, the next time the little red hen said, "Who will help me?" all three of them, the dog, the cat, and the duck, were all there to help the little red hen do the work so that they could be there when the work was done and they got to have some fun. And that's the story of the little red